The rain hammered against the windows of our small cottage in the Cotswolds, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. For 20 years, Elara and I had built a life here, a life I thought was filled with love and mutual respect. I'm Gareth, a 46-year-old IT specialist, and until recently I believed I had it all: a beautiful wife, a comfortable home, and a career I enjoyed. Now all I feel is the sting of betrayal. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly. Elara, always meticulous and organized, became increasingly secretive with her phone. She'd flinch if I entered the room while she was texting, and her phone was perpetually glued to her hand. Initially, I dismissed it as work-related stress. She's a marketing manager for a boutique hotel chain and often deals with demanding clients. But then came the late nights at the office, the weekend, conferences in cities she'd never mentioned before, and the growing emotional distance between us. We used to talk for hours, sharing our hopes and fears, but now our conversations were reduced to perfunctory exchanges about the weather or what to have for dinner. I tried to broach the subject, to ask if something was wrong, but she'd brush me off with a dismissive wave of her hand, saying I was being paranoid and insecure. I wanted to believe her, desperately. I loved her with every fiber of my being and couldn't imagine my life without her. But the nagging feeling persisted, a gnawing suspicion that something was terribly wrong. One evening, Elara claimed she had to work late. I offered to drive her, but she refused, saying she needed to take a taxi to meet a client across town. That night I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, haunted by the image of Elara with someone else. Finally, around 2 a.m., I decided to go for a drive, hoping the cool night air would clear my head. As I drove aimlessly, I found myself heading towards the hotel where Elara worked. I told myself it was just a coincidence, that I was simply taking a different route home. But as I approached the hotel, I saw her car parked in the dimly lit parking lot. A wave of nausea washed over me. I parked across the street and waited. An hour passed, then another. Just as I was about to convince myself that I was mistaken, I saw Elara emerge from the hotel, arm in arm with a man. It wasn't just any man. It was Lysander, her boss, a slick, arrogant executive with a reputation for being a womanizer. They laughed and talked as they walked to Lysander's car, and as they embraced before he drove off, I saw them kiss, a long, passionate kiss that confirmed my worst fears. The world seemed to spin around me. I felt like I was drowning, gasping for air in a sea of despair. I drove home in a daze, my mind reeling from the shock. How could she do this to me? How could she betray our love, our marriage, our life together? I spent the rest of the night pacing the floor, trying to make sense of it all. By morning, I had made a decision. I couldn't confront her directly. I needed proof, irrefutable evidence of her infidelity. I remembered an old colleague, Anorin, who worked as a private investigator. I called him, explained the situation, and asked for his help. Anorin was sympathetic and agreed to take the case. For the next 2 weeks, Anorin followed Elara, documenting her every move. He provided me with photos and videos of her meetings with Lysander, their intimate dinners, their secret rendezvous at hotels and apartments. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable. Each new piece of information was like a knife twisting in my heart, but I knew I needed to see it all to understand the full extent of her betrayal. One evening, Anorin called me with some shocking news. "Gareth," he said, "I think you need to see this in person. I've discovered something you won't believe." He directed me to a small, unassuming apartment on the outskirts of town. As I approached the building, I saw Elara's car parked outside. My heart pounded in my chest. I took a deep breath and followed Anorin inside. He led me to a door and gestured for me to look through the peephole. What I saw shattered the last vestiges of my hope. Elara was inside, in the arms of Lysander, laughing and kissing. But that wasn't the worst of it. Lying on the floor, playing with toys, was a little girl no more than 3 years old. "That's Lysander's daughter," Anorin whispered. "He's been having an affair with Elara for years, and she's been helping him take care of his child." I felt like I had been punched in the gut. Not only was Elara cheating on me, but she was also complicit in Lysander's deception of his own family. The hypocrisy was staggering. I stumbled back from the door, my mind reeling. I couldn't stay there any longer. I needed to confront her, to demand an explanation. I drove home, my hands shaking, my vision blurred with tears. When Elara arrived home later that evening, she acted as if nothing was amiss. She greeted me with a perfunctory kiss and asked how my day had been. I couldn't bear it any longer. "I know," I said, my voice trembling with anger and hurt. "I know about you and Lysander. I know about everything." Her face paled. She tried to deny it at first, but when I presented her with the evidence, the photos and videos Anarin had provided, she broke down and confessed. She claimed she had fallen in love with Lysander, that he made her feel alive in a way I never could. She said our marriage had become stale and predictable, that she needed excitement and passion in her life. I listened in stunned silence, my heart breaking with every word. How could she say these things after 20 years of marriage? How could she throw away our life together for a fleeting affair? "And what about Lysander's daughter?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "You've been helping him take care of her, haven't you? You've been lying to me for years." She hung her head in shame. "I know it was wrong," she said, "but I couldn't help myself. I loved him and I wanted to be a part of his life." I couldn't look at her any longer. The woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted, was a stranger to me. "Get out," I said, my voice cold and hard. "Get out of my house, get out of my life. I never want to see you again." She begged me to forgive her, to give her another chance, but I was unyielding. I had given her my heart, my soul, my life, and she had thrown it all away. I couldn't forgive her betrayal. I couldn't forget the pain she had caused me. She left that night, taking with her a suitcase full of clothes and a lifetime of memories. As I watched her drive away, I felt a sense of emptiness, a void that I knew would never be filled. The next few months were the hardest of my life. I struggled with depression and loneliness, haunted by the memories of our life together. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't focus on my work. I spent my days wandering aimlessly, trying to find a way to cope with the pain. My friends and family tried to comfort me, but nothing seemed to help. I felt like I was living in a nightmare that would never end. Eventually, I realized that I couldn't let Elara's betrayal destroy me. I had to find a way to move on, to rebuild my life. I started by focusing on my work, immersing myself in projects that challenged and engaged me. I also started exercising regularly, finding solace in the physical exertion. I reconnected with old friends and made new ones, rediscovering the joy of companionship. Slowly but surely, I began to heal. I realized that Elara's betrayal was not a reflection of my worth as a person, but rather a testament to her own flaws and insecurities. I had been a good husband, a loving partner, and I had nothing to be ashamed of. As I healed, I began to think about revenge. Not violent revenge, but a way to make Elara and Lysander pay for their actions. I knew that Lysander was married, and his wife, Bront, was a kind and decent woman who deserved to know the truth. I contacted Bront and told her everything, providing her with the evidence I had gathered. She was devastated but also grateful for the truth. She immediately filed for divorce and took steps to protect her assets. Lysander's life quickly unraveled. He lost his wife, his home, and his reputation. He was forced to resign from his job, and his career was in ruins. Elara, too, faced the consequences of her actions. She was ostracized by her friends and family, and she struggled to find work. She had lost everything: her husband, her home, her reputation, and her lover. In the end, Elara and Lysander were left with nothing but each other, two broken people who had destroyed their lives in pursuit of selfish desires. As for me, I emerged from the ashes of my broken marriage a stronger and wiser man. I learned that love is not always enough, that betrayal can come from the most unexpected places, and that forgiveness is not always possible. I also learned that I am resilient, that I can overcome adversity, and that I deserve to be happy. I sold the cottage in the Cotswolds, the place that held so many painful memories, and moved to a small seaside town on the coast of Cornwall. I bought a small art gallery and filled it with paintings and sculptures that inspired me. I spent my days surrounded by beauty and creativity, and my nights listening to the sound of the waves crashing against the shore. I found peace and contentment in my new life, a life that was free from the pain and betrayal of the past. One day, a woman walked into my gallery, a woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. Her name was Willow, and she was an artist. We talked for hours that day about art, about life, about love. I found myself drawn to her intelligence, her compassion, and her infectious enthusiasm. Over the next few months, Willow and I grew closer. We shared our hopes and dreams, our fears and insecurities. I found myself falling in love again, cautiously but surely. This time I knew it would be different. This time I would choose wisely, and I would protect my heart with all my might. Elara's betrayal had taught me a valuable lesson, that love is a precious gift, and it should be cherished and protected at all costs.